Hey, what's up, friends, lovers, and adults who have yet to be diagnosed with dyslexia? Today, I just figured it's time. It's the end of the year. This is probably going up at the beginning of 2021, so sorry. Well, not sorry. I usually do this at the end of the year, and I was going through my Goodreads to see if it was even, worthwhile, and I realized I had read a lot of really good books this year, so I was like, cool, why not do this? And I was going to film yesterday, and I not only had an IBS attack, but also an anxiety attack, which sucks because it was also the day that I re-dyed my hair, so my hair was actually good yesterday, and today it looks horrendous. Also, before we actually talk about the books, this morning when I checked, I'm about to hit 1,000 subscribers, which is absolutely fucking insane to me. So I just want to say thank you. I said this kind of at the beginning of my last video, but the positive response that I've been getting recently is very crazy. Not saying I want to be an influencer, but being an influencer would be far more sustainable for someone like myself with multiple disabilities than working a 40-hour-a-week job, which is the reason I had a panic attack yesterday. Sometimes we're just very disabled. So this is technically 15 books, but a bunch of them are clumped together, so I'm gonna start counting at 11. Don't hate me. These are also, I gave every single one of these books 5 stars. We're not approaching that question. I feel like I never hit that many books with 5 stars in a year. I also set my reading goal at 45 this year, which is insanity. And next year we're only doing 35 in the hopes that I read more than 35. So number 11 is The Finger by William S. Burroughs, aka Billiam Burroughs, aka Bill Burroughs. Beat. This is a Beat Generation book. I bought this book when I was in Paris. You can see right here, I got it at the Shakespeare & Co. bookstore, which I had never been to, even though this was my 3rd time in Paris. Confusing for someone like myself who is obsessed with books and bookstores. Actually, no, I take it back. Not confusing. The first time I was there, I was on a school trip, so no time. The second time I was there, I went to Paris on my way to Tel Aviv where I was living for 2 months, and there was no room for me to add a book, even a single book, in my suitcase. That should probably tell you a lot about me. The Finger, it's just a bunch of short stories. They're very vignette-y. They're very much veiled actual life stories from Bill Burroughs, if you know anything about him. And I usually don't like short stories or vignettes, but it was snappy and funny in ways that I didn't expect. So, and it was short as hell. So you know why I read it. I was trying to hit that goal. Book number 10 is Blind into Leaving by Jason Baldinger. Jason is someone that I know. He's an acquaintance in my real life. The first time I ever read any of his books was for National Poetry Month in 2019. In April, I only read poetry, and I found his poetry at the bookstore right next to where I got my nails done at the time, because he worked at that bookstore. But I think he's one of the most talented living poets. And I think everyone should read his work. This was one of 2 books that he had published in 2020. I just got the second one in. I haven't read it yet. It's going to be one of the first books I read in 2021. So, what I really like about his poetry is that it has this Beat Generation style feel to it, but I don't know how he's gritty, but he's Midwest in a way that they weren't. So if you know anything about Pennsylvania, Ohio, that general Rust Belty area, you might know what I'm talking about. Yes. Book number 9 is Kaddish by Allen Ginsberg. It should come as no surprise to a single human being on this planet that Allen Ginsberg is, yes, my favorite poet. And yes, Stan account vibes. I love him so much. Queer Jewish person. Need I say more? The main poem of this book, which I had previously read, but whatever, is about his mother's death. The beginning of this edition, which is the expanded 50th and 50th anniversary edition explains how he couldn't actually get to his mother's funeral in time because Jewish people bury our dead very quickly, because there's all these Jewish laws talking about like how things have to be done, and 90% of them have to do with like sanitary reasons. So his mom was buried like 3 days after she died, and he was all the way on the other side of the country, so he couldn't get there in time, blah blah blah, whatever. And it really fucked him up for a long time. I'm not gonna assume that people who are watching this know anything about my life, but Thanksgiving 2019, my pop-up, who had been dying of Alzheimer's for like 10 years, passed away. And much like Alan, who spent a lot of time with his mom and like felt like he was sort of burdened with the memory of like her well and having to reconcile with that with her really unwell, I'm kind of that person in my family, especially like in terms of grandchildren. I'm the oldest grandchild, and also I was my pop-up's favorite. Anyways, not gonna dwell on that because I'm already gonna get sad, but this poem, like, I don't know, it like helped me a lot. I have been working on a book of poetry since like over the last year that is a collection of poems focusing mostly on Jewish loss. So it moves from like public loss, from like the Tree of Life shooting and how that's like the poems that I wrote like around the time that was happening, to poems just sort of like being a Jew in Pittsburgh, blah blah blah, to then the experience of losing both of my grandparents, who were sort of like a big center of Jewish life for me. And then it's bookended with a poem that I wrote on the 1-year anniversary of the Tree of Life shooting. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that poems by Jewish people talking about loss are very important to me, I think for that reason, because it's helped me in coping with this. Yeah, there's not really much else to it. Okay, so then book number 8, Don't Hate Me, is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This book was really great. It was really fast to read. It's very fun. And I did do a video on it. If you want like actual details on how I feel, you could go watch that. This book is about the son of the sitting president at the time and the British prince. They are set up as enemies at first, and it basically goes enemies to friends to lovers. It's very cute. That is one of my favorite tropes. This book also, like, it is only number 8 because it has less substance than the other books that are higher up on this list. So just bear with me, okay? I promise this book is amazing. Everyone should read it. It's an easy read. But the books that are higher up on this list are, like, insane. So, number 7, I read as an ebook, is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, who I currently am in love with. Will I soon stalk her, start a podcast with her, become such good friends with her that she writes me into her acknowledgements and also invites me to her wedding and wants me to sign her ketubah? Maybe. It's too soon to tell, but I'm gonna say maybe not, because not everyone can be Hannah Moskowitz, but that's fine. I read this book over the summer with the book club that I run for my students, and it was amazing. It's really great. It's kind of this like triad of 3 very powerful women who sort of like represent different tropes, but they're all sort of like othered in their lives, society, stuff like that. And it's like they all kind of like gain agency for themselves as the book goes on. It's really good. It's like Jewish fantasy. It's got a lot of elements of Rumpelstiltskin, which the tea is Rumpelstiltskin's my favorite fairy tale. Very sorry to everyone who has better taste than me, but it's my favorite. Is that also partially why I liked Once Upon a Time so much? Yes, it is. I don't want to talk about it. One of the best things about this book, in my opinion, is that, like, it's pretty much impossible to, like, I don't really know any other Jewish fantasy stories, and that's one of the things that I really, really appreciated about this book. It's also not as good as the other book of hers that I have in this list. Next book I read thanks to NetGalley. It's not out yet. It will be out in February of 2021. This book, Mouths of Rain, edited by Brianna Simone James, is an anthology of Black lesbian feminist literature. It's so good. Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks. Yes, I am white. However, as a lesbian, which, like, don't quote me on that, that changes like every 3 weeks, because every 3 weeks I'm manic, and when I'm manic, I decide it's time to date men again. Actually unhealthy coping mechanism. Okay, so as I was reading this, which a lot of it, I would say it's like spit.
What the fuck is going on in here on this day?
I would say it's split up fairly evenly between essays, poetry, and fiction. And I mean, a lot of the fiction is just in a style that I don't personally like, so I'm just not going to comment on that. But I'm an essay stan / essayist. The essays are just really fantastic. They're pretty much all like queer and feminist like analyses of society. Highly recommend. But this book was really like, I found it to be like really enriching for my soul. And so I can imagine for Black lesbians, it's even more so. It's incredible and I loved it so much. Number 5 is 3 books. Don't hate me. It is All the Rage, Madness, and Bury It by Sam Sachs, which Elsa has, so I can't utilize the book. But that's my favorite book of poetry, like, ever. Also, Bury It was a reread. I read these this year because we had Sam come to my place of work and he did a reading and it was amazing. And I also got to go and get drinks with him afterwards, and he's very nice and very, very fucking talented. And I think I said that I thought Jason Baldinger is the greatest poet, but I mean, I really think Sam is the greatest living poet, and he's queer. And he's amazing and so talented. He's an icon. He's a legend.
And she is the moment.
Then, number 4, there's a kind of a trend going on with the poetry, don't hate me. But this is Probably Angels by Audrey Lee. I most certainly did have a crisis after reading this because I know Audrey personally. We used to go to a writing camp together for 2 years, and she's also really fucking talented. I think she might be like the up and coming poet to watch out for. Do hate that for me because I want to be that, but she's definitely way better than I am, and possibly better than I'll ever be. I don't want to think about that though. If you can get your hands on this, Probably Angels. Like, I think it's a must read. It's, like, insanely good. That makes me sad for myself. Definitely watch out for Audrey. This is really, really good. Like, if I could give this 6 stars, I would. Now, number 3 is a trilogy, and it's also a reread. And it's the Chemical Gardens trilogy by Lauren DeStefano. So we have Wither, Sever, and Fever. I first read this one, Wither, as an arc when I was in middle school because I was part of this, like, program where, like, young teens would read YA and then send reviews to the publishers. And let me tell you, this book changed my life. I think I read this one, and then I read Invincible Summer by Hannah Moskowitz, like, back to back. And then I found out that Hannah was from Maryland, and then I stalked her online for, like, 13 years. Wait a minute. No, I'm not 26. I stalked her online for like 7 years, something like that. I didn't really want to include rereads, but these books are so fucking good. I went from like one to the other, and like all I could do was read these books. And I totally didn't remember anything that happened in the second 2 when I was in middle school. Maybe because I read it in middle school, or maybe because of the trauma.
But that's not drama, that's trauma.
But, I mean, they really hold up. They're amazing still. I have also read one of Lauren DeStefano's other trilogies, but I haven't read everything that she's written. She's really talented. I think everyone should read her stuff. She's really good.
She's really good.
Without a doubt. Think that... I don't know if I included any of these in my required reading video, but you know what? They should be required reading. They're that good. They're so enjoyable. Enjoy your life. Read good books.
Period.
Number 2, Elsa also has my copy, so the homophobia is just radiating. But that book is How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. And yes, I had it sitting on my shelf for like a year and a half until some boy on Tinder... don't at me, told me that I needed to go and read it immediately, and then it was the next thing that I read. Most certainly I never spoke to this man again, but I mean, he was kind of right to have it be like his favorite book. This book legitimately changed my life. Content warning. Yes, it's about drugs. While sometimes Michael Pollan's writing is really, really dense, the thing that I like that he does in his style is he'll go from like intro as in terms of why he wanted to write about this thing to the history of the thing to him trying the thing to the research. Sometimes those other two are like switched around, whatever. He also wrote The Omnivore's Dilemma, which I didn't love, but like I could tell it was good writing, but like this one's legitimately amazing. So this is about like psychedelics and how they help you change your mind about things, how doing psychedelics can like change your life path, assuming that the way in which you do it creates like a peak experience, not just like you're taking like a low dose and it's whatever. You gotta read it to understand like how he's doing it and how the research around it has changed and whatnot. I personally have like crippling anxiety when it comes to recreational drugs because of a bad experience that I had that I haven't gotten around to fixing yet, so that I don't, it's bled into other things where like I can't eat food that my friends make for me. That's a problem for me and my therapist. But in addition to that, I also have really horrific anxiety around death, especially in terms of like my personal death. And according to like this book and research that has been done, having a peak experience with a psychedelic in middle age and or if you're terminally ill can like not only ease that death anxiety but also like get you out of like mental ruts and help you like really take control over your life again. And it's so fascinating, and like I can't totally explain the whole thing because I really think you need to read it, but it's like insanely good. And I think every single person on the planet should read it, including myself reading it a second time. Last but not least is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. Yes, I did also do a review on that. You could go watch it. It's, I would say, probably one of the best YA books I've ever read. I constantly think about it. I'm constantly thinking about this. I sort of want to explain what the book is about, but I went in blind because the synopsis of the book it doesn't explain anything. So I basically went in blind, which I think usually leads to me having better experiences with books. So I'm going to recommend that you go in blind. Yeah, definitely go in blind when you read this. The second book comes out mid-2021. Yes, I have already pre-ordered my copy. Yes, I'm very excited. Naomi Novik became to sort of like be sort of well known through writing Harry Potter fan fiction. This is very much like elevated better, but in that same sort of vein. That's all I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you it's better than any book that I've read in the last several years. Like, maybe the only one that I think can hold a candle to it in terms of how I feel about it would be like Princess Academy by Shannon Hale. Maybe. This is just insanely good, and everyone who I know who read it feels the same way. These are the best books that I read in 2020. I almost said 2021. I know what year it is, I swear to God. These are the best books that I read in 2020. I, like, legitimately, all of these have 5-star ratings from me. I think everyone should read them. Go and read them, please. You're doing yourself a favor. If you want to stay up with what I'm reading all the time, my Goodreads will be linked below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for this year, especially the end of the year, which was really crazy. It's really hard to fathom, like, this support. It's very crazy, and I am so thankful and so excited. That's really all I have to say. Thank you for watching. You can find my links to my social media down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Whoa, whoa, Mamma Mia, here I go again. My, how could I resist you? Mamma Mia, does it show?